Хотела вам показать на этом канале одно из моих радиошоу. Это последнее радиошоу, которое я делала на английском языке. Радиошоу делается так. Мне присылают вопросы, я на них отвечаю по теме ОКР. И вопросы довольно разные. Если вам это интересно, я просто даю очень много информации в этом шоу, но оно все на английском. Поэтому не знаю, поможет ли оно вам, но довожу до сведения, как говорится. Так что enjoy, и если у вас есть какие-то вопросы по шоу или что-то непонятно, спрашивайте, я всегда отвечу. Hi everyone, this is OCD Live, I'm Ali Agreement, and let's get to some questions. So the first question I have is, hi Ali, what should I do? Because when I listen to music, someone from the past pops up and the lyrics makes my mind start being creative. Do I stop listening to music? And also at other, not good times, the person pops up in my mind and starts telling me stuff that I don't want to do. I feel so sad. So, okay, the more you avoid your regular behaviors because of OCD, the more OCD thoughts you are going to get. Because what your mind is doing is it's seeing that you're avoiding because you are scared, and it's going to bring on more of these thoughts. So it's very important for you to not alter your routine in any way. And this goes for no matter what kind of OCD you have, no matter what kind of, when your OCD pops up, it's very important not to do anything different specifically because of OCD. Because every time you alter your routine, you're sending a signal to your mind that you are afraid. And your mind is going to send you more thoughts, and then you're going to get more afraid, and then it's going to send you even more thoughts. So it becomes this kind of never-ending loop. And to get out of the loop, you have to do the things you would normally do, even though you're going to have the fear, even though you're going to feel uncomfortable, because you're going to feel uncomfortable only for a certain period of time. It's not going to last forever. So for a while you will, and then it's going to start slowly kind of, the anxiety is going to start going down and down until it's going to be gone. But you have to get your mind used to doing those everyday things the same way you were before these thoughts started coming into your mind. So the next question is about BDD. BDD is a body dysmorphic disorder, and it's kind of similar to OCD, so the person just wanted me to talk about it. So basically, it's the same kind of thing where the more you're paying attention to a specific body part or how something looks, the more you start to get into it. So you need to pull away and say, okay, you know what, it doesn't matter, I'm not paying attention, I'm not going to examine it in that close of a detail. Because the more you examine, the more your anxiety goes up. And it is the same kind of thing as with OCD, where the more your anxiety goes up, the worse you will feel about the situation, because you're looking at it from a perspective of, kind of under the microscope, right? Where everybody else is looking at it from the perspective of like, oh, whatever, just a body part, whatever it is that you're concerned about, you know what I mean? So it's not allowing yourself to dig in and analyze, because that's the problem with OCD, no matter what type of OCD it is the analyzing, the trying to figure it out, the trying to solve it. And don't do any online research, because that kind of feeds into it as well. So I'm not an expert on BDD, but those are kind of the basics that you can definitely apply as you would to OCD to this thing as well. So the next question I have is, why is rumination mental checking so bad, and how can I prevent it? And I've already kind of replied to this, that the rumination and mental checking is done out of fear. The mind doesn't understand that you're ruminating or that you're checking, but it does understand that you're looking into the situation, that you're bringing up this particular situation, and you're bringing up the situation with a sense of fear. That it gets. So it gets that connection, that situation equals fear. And that's the signal that you're sending when you're doing these things. When your mind receives that signal, what it does is it sends you more anxiety and more fear. It doesn't matter what the thought is. If you're sending a thought with fear that you're genuinely worried about, right, it's going to send you more of it back. Because with OCD, you're taking the thought seriously. You're genuinely taking it seriously, So your mind sees that you are really scared, like you're not faking being scared, you are actually scared, and it is trying to protect you. So that's why it's so damaging. And that's why it's the same whether you're doing rumination, mental checking, avoidance, asking people, just, however you're thinking about the situation, however you're trying to solve the situation, you're showing your mind that you are afraid. And that's the problem of it all. It's not actually the avoidance or the rumination. It's that you're showing your mind that you're afraid. How can you prevent it? Honestly, just really trying to stay focused on other things and doing your best not to go into the situation. However you need to do it, and it's not all or nothing game. Every time you send your mind a signal that this matters to you, that you are actually very scared, you're making yourself worse. If you're sending your mind the signal that you're feeling the fear, but you're choosing not to be scared, you're getting better. And it's like that, where it's not all the time. Like I say with the percentage, try to go 80-20, right? So 80% of the time, try to send the right signal as much as you can, and 20% of the time there will be that 20% that you fail. That's just natural, because we're not robots. So sometimes you will pay attention, but most of the time you have to choose not to pay attention and start living your life as if you already got over OCD. So start doing things as if you're already better, because the more you are out doing things, going to work, spending time with friends, spending time with family, being outside, all of these things show your mind that you are not actually in danger, and actually they do help you recover. Now, when you do these things, the refocusing aspect, right? When you're refocusing, you're not going to feel good because you're still anxious. But it's important to go through the motions anyway, even though you don't feel good, because that's going to show your mind again that you are making a choice not to pay attention. And that's really good, because when you're saying, I choose not to pay attention to this thought anymore, I'm not going to ruminate, I'm not going to analyze, I'm not going to look back to the situation, I'm not going to do any of that, your mind is seeing that you are saying that from a position of power. When, like listen to me saying that, right? I don't sound like I'm afraid, right? But when you're coming from a position of, let me check, let me try to analyze, let me try to figure out, oh my God, this is so bad, you're coming from a position of fear, and the mind really sees the difference between the two and acts accordingly. So if you're showing fear, you're going to get more thoughts. If you're not showing fear, you're going to get less thoughts, and eventually no thoughts at all. So it's very important to do those things, and again, to the best of your ability. It's not going to be perfect all the time, but you need to put effort, and all the time just trying your best every moment of every day. This is like similar to if you want to lose weight, right? It's not that, I have to lose weight by New Year's or something like that, right? It's that, what am I going to eat next? Is it going to be helping me lose weight, or is it going to be helping me gain weight? So looking at small victories rather than a big victory at the end. So I also had a few questions about asking me about the recovery program and all of that, and where it's based out of. So I just wanted to kind of go over it quickly here. It's on Skype, so we can talk. It doesn't matter where you are. You can find out all the information on youhaveocd.com, and if you go under the recovery program there, you can sign up and get all that started. So, but yeah, no, I talk to people pretty much everywhere in the world, so there's no specific restrictions in terms of country. People were asking, how long are the sessions? The sessions are usually an hour each. Sometimes, it depends. Like, I'm not gonna limit the person to an hour, so sometimes they run longer, so it's kind of fluid, but usually around an hour. So, and then my availability, because people were asking, when am I available? I can usually book you in within about 3 days of a request. So it won't be like the next day, but within a few days we can get something going. So if you would like to find out more information, you can visit youhaveocd.com for that. Okay, so the next question I have is, what to do now when my thoughts no longer give me anxiety or my exposures? So this one is kind of difficult for me to answer, because I'm not really understanding what you mean that they don't give you anxiety. I'm assuming you're just kind of used to having them. So, because I'm assuming if you're writing to me, you still have OCD, so they're still bothering you, but the actual thoughts, you're very much used to having them. So for that, I would say that doing the exposure, but preventing the response. Because if you're still having OCD, that means you're still responding with fear. So on some level, or you're avoiding something, So basically what you need to do, since your anxiety is lower, I'm assuming that means that your general OCD level is no longer 10 out of 10, but maybe like 5 out of 10 or something like that. So if that's correct, you have a lot more opportunity to actually push yourself further and start getting back to regular life, regular life, whatever that means for you. So if you were doing something previously to getting OCD, right? Like going somewhere, doing something, and you stopped because of OCD, you want to start doing that again. If you had some sort of plans or dreams that you put on hold because of OCD, you have to start getting back to doing them again. So it's basically, you have to get back to how your life was before you had OCD. So, because that, again, that shows your mind that you're over it, you're not scared, you're not dealing with it, you're not paying attention. Because if you're not getting high level of anxiety, then you can push yourself a little bit further. Because, again, you know how I was saying in the last show, if you guys listened, that when you're going, when you're doing OCD recovery, you're racing against yourself. So here's where you start, which is usually people start at like 10 out of 10 OCD, like really severe anxiety. And then they need to get to 0 out of 10. But 0 out of 10, I mean, nobody has 0 out of 10, Like I've been recovered from OCD for a while. And, I'm not 0 out of 10. I don't think any person is, Some days you just get anxiety, it's normal. Anxiety is actually a survival mechanism, so it's not a bad thing. It's just when it gets out of control, then that's obviously not good. And when it's 10 out of 10, then that's a real problem, right? So on that race for going from 10 out of 10 to say 1 out of 10, right? You can go as slow or as fast as you want. But as you get better and as your anxiety lowers, you can push yourself further. So say, for example, if you're afraid to do too many exposures, you only do exposures like once a week or something like that, you can now do them every day. Because the more you show your mind that I'm not scared of this specific situation, the faster you progress in your recovery. So you're starting to race a little bit faster towards that finish line. If that's your goal, you can take it as a slow and steady approach and just keep going with it until you fully recover, So, but if you want to speed it up, save yourself a few months of panic, then that's how you would do it. So next question I have is, hi Ali, how do we know that we are in the process of recovery? And what does it mean to recover from OCD? And again, just like I kind of answered in the previous question, you know that you're in the process of recovery if your anxiety is going down. Now, day to day, it's kind of hard to judge because some days you're just a little bit stressed overall, and because the mind doesn't understand OCD, it's not wired to understand which thoughts are OCD and which are not, which is why we have OCD, right? If the mind kind of could figure it out on its own without you doing the work, then you wouldn't need to do the work, right? It would solve itself. But because the mind is not wired for these kind of, like, if you want to call it an anomaly, right? It views all stress equal. So stress from regular life, stress from OCD, it's all kind of piled into the same bag, if you wish, right? So you have to make sure that every day you are reducing your anxiety as much as possible, and then also understanding what's causing your anxiety. So are you really stressed in real life and that's what's causing you to have more anxiety? Or is it just, rumination, looking back, reassurance seeking, all of that stuff? Or is it a combination of both? So examining your situation and trying to improve it. And you should see steady progress week to week. Day to day, probably not. Week to week, you really should see progress. Unless, like I said, it's a long-term stress and there's a kind of like unexpected life situations that are happening to you, then it could be even month to month. But most people, week to week, you should see it go down. So for example, first week your anxiety is 10 out of 10, second week your anxiety is 8 out of 10, third week your anxiety is 7 or 6 out of 10. So something like that. And that's how you see progress. If you're not seeing the anxiety go down, that's not good. It means you're somewhere, you're analyzing, somewhere you're paying attention. So you kind of have to examine and see where that's happening. And usually I see a lot of progress in the beginning. So when a person goes 10 out of 10, starts out at 10 out of 10 and goes down to 7, that goes really fast. But for some reason, I usually see it slow down between 7, 6 to, going away completely. And I think that that's just because people generally don't work as hard in that period of time because they're already better, they already know how to do it, and they just kind of let the thoughts go some of the time, and then that makes the thoughts go back up. So you start to, in that race, you start to almost go backwards because, oh, I paid attention here, oh, I paid attention there, and then it starts to kind of ramp up again, So you have to be vigilant with it and finish the race, not just like halfway. So that's important as well. And again, like I said in the previous question, fully recover from OCD means not to have thoughts that are outrageous, thoughts that nobody else would worry about, Will you still have anxiety? Yes, you will still have anxiety, but your anxiety will be within what is called the normal range, right? Some days it will be worse, some days it will be none, but it will be within normal range. It won't be so much that you cannot function. So I've gotten a lot of questions about relationship OCD. So I just kind of wanted to touch base on that. And again, relationship OCD is not any different than any other type of OCD. The more you pay attention to the thoughts, the more you try to analyze, the worse you're going to get in this. I'm telling you, as soon as you pull out of getting in depth into the thoughts, you will start to feel better. But the more time you spend analyzing and going over and trying to figure it out, the worse you will get. The more it will, the more fear you will start to feel. So it's very important to refuse to pay attention. Anything that has to do with your relationship that's giving you anxiety is automatically should be considered an OCD thought. And this goes for any actually type of OCD, not specifically just the relationship OCD, right? That anything to do with your theme is immediately, it has to be attributed to OCD. And now I'm moving on, right? So it's OCD, I'm not paying attention, I'm not going any further with it in my mind, I'm definitely not asking for reassurance, I'm definitely not checking, I'm just moving on. This should be kind of like your mantra every single day. So, and after a few days, you will start to feel better. And you have to understand that there's no magic bullet, there's no magic pill that will solve this for you. You need to put in the work. So every moment of every day that you're getting bombarded with these thoughts is every moment of every day that you have to choose to disregard. Nobody else can do this for you. You have to do it. So you get a thought about a relationship, you're choosing not to pay attention. Because right now, you choose to pay attention all the time, and that's what's getting you deeper in. So you need to say, I don't care if I get anxiety, I don't care if it's scary, I'm still going to choose not to pay attention to it. The thoughts will still rotate in your mind, and they still will bother you, but you're choosing to actively do nothing about it. So you're not examining, you're not giving any energy towards it. You're receiving that fear, but you're not multiplying the fear, you're not making it worse. And you will see that if you do this, you will start to feel better. So the next question I have is, how long does it typically take for someone to really recover from OCD? And if they are for the most part not giving into the OCD thoughts? I would say when you start doing the work, just like what I was talking about with relationship OCD, like really being focused, I would say probably about 6 months is an average. Because there's also physical, this is not a metaphysical thing. There's a physical component that's taking place. Whenever your brain was faced with this situation, even if you're just watching a movie or something like that, it's used to reacting. So as soon as the situation is in front of you in whatever way, the brain already starts firing negative feelings at you. It's a physical situation that's taking place. So for it to change, once you start training your mind, there actually does still need a period of time to go by. So it's not instant. And that's why sometimes people ask, well, I'm doing the right things, why am I not feeling better? Well, you should be feeling better a little bit if you're doing the right things. In terms of, I did the right thing for a whole entire day and now I want to be recovered. No, it doesn't work like that, because you did a wrong thing for a whole long length of time, right? Way longer than a day. So it will take some time, but you, like I said in one of the previous questions, that you should see your anxiety slowly going down, and definitely not going up, but staying not really staying the same either. So you should be seeing some sort of an improvement. Like I said, maybe not every single day, because some days are just hard to deal with. You have maybe busy, stressed, a lot of stuff, but most of the time you should be seeing your anxiety go down. That's how you're progressing. And if you're doing that, then it will take about 6 months, and you can kind of see that. You can keep a log of where your anxiety is every single day on average. So obviously some parts of the day are going to be worse than others, but on average, where's your anxiety today? Is it 10 out of 10? Is it 8 out of 10? And then over the course of weeks, you can see how more or less the anxiety is going down, or maybe it's not, and then you need to re-examine what you're doing wrong. And usually, if you're trying to figure out what you're doing wrong, it comes down to either avoidance, that you're avoiding situations that are triggering your OCD, or you're doing reassurance, so you're kind of living your life normally, but at the same time, every time the OCD situation comes up, you end up seeking reassurance. So usually either a combination of the two, or one of the two, that's where you're going wrong. So, and just correcting that behavior, that, okay, from this moment on, I'm not going to ask anybody about my OCD thoughts, or I'm not going to avoid, or whatever, and then you will, again, always coming from a position of power. That is the most critical. It doesn't matter what kind of behavior you're doing to make OCD worse. Is that avoidance or reassurance? But it matters if you're continuously giving that reaction of fear. That's what's really stopping your progress, and this is what's making you actually have OCDs, that reaction of fear. So you need to make sure that you're coming from a position of power. Even if you kind of feel like you're faking it, it's still fine. And it doesn't matter if you feel guilty. It doesn't matter if you feel ashamed. It doesn't matter if you feel like you're kind of being not a real person by, not feeding into what OCD is telling you. These are just symptoms of OCD. You have to go through it regardless of all of these additional feelings, and then you will start to feel better. But yeah, just like I said about the question, that about 6 months, if you're doing those things like what I just mentioned. And the last question I have is about relationship OCD as well. And the person is feeling, well, I don't feel the same as before. I feel like OCD is almost taking the feelings out of the relationship, because I'm so focused on the OCD, and trying to convince me that all of these things are true, and all of this kind of stuff. So there's quite a few questions, but basically they're talking about the same thing. And again, all of these are products of OCD. So just like the person will, if they have harm OCD, they'll feel guilty. What if I harmed somebody or whatever? With a relationship, they're going to start to get all kinds of thoughts about the relationship. What if I don't, care, and all this kind of stuff, right? So again, going through it, disregarding the feelings, your job is not to look into any of these things. So like the questions that you wrote to me, your job is to not look into any of them, okay? Yes, you're feeling those things. Yes, you're worried. You're choosing not to react continuously. Doesn't matter what kind of OCD thought you get about the relationship. If it has to do with your relationship, and if it's a fear-based thought, you're disregarding, you're moving on. That's your only job. All of this stuff, you're not going to dig into each individual thought to try to analyze it, to try to figure it out, to try to solve it. You will feel anxious, and that anxiety, of course, is going to make you kind of feel sad and feel like it's, you don't feel as happy before, because it's not even that you don't feel as happy in the relationship, you just don't feel as happy because you're having OCD thoughts. you know? Once those thoughts go away, you feel like you used to feel. So that will fix itself. You don't need to analyze it. You don't need to worry about it. You just need to do the job. And the job is that anytime you get a relationship OCD thought or any kind of thought, I just had the relationship OCD question here, but any kind of thought, you're just disregarding, whatever your OCD theme is. And then you will start to feel good. And also doing exposures. So a lot of the times I find with relationship OCD, the person will not want to spend as much time with the partner because they're having thoughts and they feel uncomfortable and all of this kind of stuff. You have to do those things anyway. Spend time with your partner. Talk with your partner. Not about OCD, but just generally. Because the more you withdraw and avoid, because that is avoidance, just like the person who has driving OCD is avoiding driving, the person who has a relationship OCD is avoiding their partner. It's the same exact thing. So you have to act as if everything is normal in order for your brain to understand that there's no danger. So I hope this helps, guys. Thank you so much for listening for today's show. That's all the questions I have. If you would like to start the private recovery program, it's available on youhaveocd.com. There's also ebooks available. There's a lot of free information. So please check that out. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, please subscribe, and I'll see you next week.